We're going to start by looking at today's top news headlines. Ashley James in the studio with us. Morning, Ashley. And Nick is still in the studio down at your radio show. Morning to you as well, Nick. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to start with the headline that's dominating all of the newspapers, and I'm sure was dominating your radio show this morning, Nick. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has confirmed the government U-turn on winter fuel payments. The backtrack means around 9 million pensioners, almost three-quarters of them, will now get the payment. She was pretty adamant for a long time that they weren't going to do this, Nick, but she's finally acquiesced.
She has, and some people say she's looking a bit fuelish, as it were. Yes, millions will now get that. The £35,000, you're absolutely right, is the cap. Now, this is the interesting thing. This can apparently now be afforded after months and months of claims that it could and then denials that it could, because she's stabilised the economy. Well, let's take a close look at that. The projections from the IMF, the Bank of England, the OECD are all downgrading Britain's growth forecast. Admittedly, it has the best growth in G7, but that is minus 1%. And we're currently £2.6 trillion in debt, or 96% of GDP. Enough of the figures. Let's get to the raw politics. This was the wrong decision, taken too early. They are right to row back. There are people who do need this £200, £300 if you're 80 or above. It is the right decision, but it's an ugly look for the way the government have effectively been forced or coerced to do it.
And Ashley, the other thing that people are asking, the Tories being first and foremost in this, is for the Chancellor and the Prime Minister to apologise.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is rich coming from the Tories, given that between 2019 and 2022 there were 30 U-turns or 30 policy changes by the Conservative government. However, what I will say is, like, for me, the reason that there's such a disconnect between people and politicians is because there's this kind of, like, lack of humanity or lack of empathy. And, like, for me, I think apologies or even just, like, recognising how stressful this must be for real people, because this is what politicians need to remember. They are there to represent people, and a lot of their policies impact, obviously, pensioners, but also, you know, there's been lots of welfare cuts that will affect people living on disabilities, or, you know, we still haven't seen the two-child benefit cap being removed. So there are lots of people living in poverty, and I think anything that there must have been a reason why she has made this U-turn, whether it's because Reform mentioned that they were going to do it and she's trying to win back voters, or whether it's because she has, as I think, was Ed Miliband on your show today, and he was saying that they've got the economy into a stable position. So even if that's the case, I think it's really important to address people as a human being and say, I understand that this has caused a lot of anxiety and stress for people, but this is what we've been able to do, and this is why, and not in kind of politician talk, in like human talk. And I think that will really help people feel connected, and to know that this is something that is going to help people. It is a positive thing, but you just have to be a little bit more human, I think.
Nick, what was Ed Miliband's response this morning? I'm sure you asked about that.
Well, Ed Miliband is a fairly plain-speaking bloke, and I've known him for goodness knows how many years, and I put to him the figures about stabilising the economy. Just to remind you, all sorts of organisations, the Bank of England, the IMF, the OECD, he says they have stabilised it. To Ashley's point, he points to the fact that we do have, albeit at 0.7, but there is a degree of growth, and we're the only country in the G7 that's actually achieved that. So that's what Mr Miliband is saying. He's saying that it was the right decision at the time when it came in July. That has helped stabilise the economy. Personally, I'm not buying it, but you can see how he gets there. Ultimately, though, it will be how the voters react. Remember, it's the big spending review tomorrow. That's not going to be a major event. The big one, everyone, is, of course, the next budget. And there is a real belief. Bear in mind, she was looking to save somewhere in the region of £2 billion. Vast sums of money. This was meant to save... By the time you put in means testing, it's still going to save over £400 million. Again, a vast sum of money. But she's already missing about £1.5 billion. More tax rises, that's what some are saying you look out for in the autumn budget.
OK.
Let's see where she finds the money from.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jamie Oliver now. He's been involved in this new documentary, and the show last night talked about him opening up about his own experience. Let's take a look.
School for me back then was a nightmare.
What people found easy, I seem to find difficult.
You know, when I was told to write essays, I couldn't write essays, but I could speak them.
Education needs to be accessible to all of us, including those of us who learn differently.
You're nodding there, Ashley. This can surely only be a good thing, people talking about their own experiences like this and shining a light on it.
I mean, I think, you know, for Jamie Oliver, who has had lived experience, and, you know, he spoke really openly about the fact that he didn't read a book until he was 33 years old. I really worry. My son's starting school in September, so I think you look at things differently once you have your own children. And I think I was very lucky at school that I was very academic, so I flourished in environments like that. But I know lots of people who are so intelligent but not in the kind of academic way, and they get lost in the education system. And my son started undergoing tests for SEN, and I don't know yet if there will be difficulties, but I want him to be able to enjoy school and to flourish in school. And I think, these kind of celebrity-backed campaigns, which is what it is, obviously the documentary we're seeing, it helps to raise awareness and it helps to hopefully push things forward. Jamie Oliver, I think, has also been in Parliament talking about this. I think, any time a celebrity puts their name to something, it reduces the stigma, raises awareness, and also increases participation. And we see that, in health, if people talk openly about breast cancer or cervical screening saving their lives, there's an increase in turnouts of people getting screened themselves. There's always an increase in participation. We saw during the elections in the US that Taylor Swift, just by a single tweet, increased voter registration by 250,000 people in 72 hours. Stormzy in the UK did a tweet in the 2019 elections, and 150,000 under 25 signed up in a day. So I think it's so important when celebrities put their name to something, and hopefully this will make a difference, because I do think the education system isn't accessible for everyone, and we know so many parents who do have children that have learning difficulties, whether that's dyslexia or other special needs or ADHD or whatever it might be, and everybody just wants their kids to thrive. And I think at the moment school doesn't reflect that for everybody.
Nick, it really is important that all kids have the chance to reach their maximum potential, and this surely highlights that.
Totally. And listen, Ben, Kat, you presented more television shows than most. You know, if you have a personal investment, a personal involvement, how much better the product comes out, because you know absolutely everything you're talking about and it touches your life. And in this instance, I think Jamie is an absolute hero. I'm old enough to remember when he did that campaign about school food, and he managed to outlaw those ghastly turkey Twizzlers and various other things. And he made a real, what politicians would call a step change. You and I would call it a change. But he made a real change in the provision of school meals. Let's hope he does it in the provision of this level of education, because as Ashley rightly says, there are more kids being diagnosed with this various range of conditions. We have to be alive to it. Sadly, when I went to school, there was virtually no understanding of that whatsoever. I can think now of a couple of classmates who clearly had challenges that we would recognise now. I hate to say it, but in those days they were just relegated. People just thought they were slow. They weren't slow. They were learning at a different level to the rest of the class, and there was no provision. So let's hope that works. And again, to Ashley's point, I mean, when they were getting on so well, do you remember what the two brothers, Princes William and Harry, did for matters of emotional health? They came out, they spoke about their problems, and suddenly, and they were really, what happy days, they were really tight, they were really free, and that was such a breath of fresh air. So when it works so well.
Yeah. Lots of people getting in touch. Carla says it was a phenomenal documentary, very moving. It made me remember the fight 5 years ago to get my son, a dyslexic tech. The school dodged the subject and stonewalled me. I almost went to the head of my local authority. It was a nightmare. I felt angry and let down. Nicholas says, I'm dyslexic, went to school in the 80s. It was a nightmare from start to finish. It definitely destroyed my confidence. I still have issues getting the right support. Well done, Jamie, for raising awareness. Chrissy says, Jamie's programme highlighted the shortcomings in the education system. I'm lucky that my son has been brilliant at picking up his dyslexia. We're fortunate enough to be able to pay the extortionate testing costs. It's an interesting thing, actually, isn't it? Because it seems to be a postcode lottery with regards to the schools having the facility and the staff and the expertise to be able to pick these things up in time. Because if they are, it gives the kids the best chance they possibly can get.
Yeah, exactly. And, who doesn't want the best for children, because they are the futures. And as you rightly said, the impact that it can have on your confidence when you feel like you're trying but you're not being recognised or you're not flourishing. So I think this is only a really positive thing. Yeah.
We're talking our next story, very quick, we've only got a minute, but Andy Murray is talking about how he's struggling with his son, who is better at him at a very particular sport. This is what he said in an interview with Claire Balding.
My 5-year-old boy has got massively into chess, which I'm really enjoying playing with him, because I'm not a particularly good chess player, but I've got quite an analytical sort of mind, and I enjoy the game and watching him learn and playing with him. And it's difficult losing to a 5-year-old when in the middle of the game he's asking you to come and wipe his bum. Essentially, he's going to the toilet in the middle of the game, and then he comes back and is beating me at chess. It's humbling, that, for my intelligence.
Brilliantly, Andy Murray. Nick, you've got boys that are considerably older than 5, but do you ever let them beat you at anything?
They now beat me regularly at table tennis, at swimming, at everything. Just about, even ball, they can beat me at. That's why I only play them at Scrabble. And as I'm a worms bloke, that's the only thing I can do, Scrabble.
How about yours?
So my kids are still very young, but Alf has got to the age now that if we say something wrong, he'll correct us.
Oh,
so that's quite humbling. Yeah, exactly.
But
at least it's chess and not tennis. It'd be worrying if Andy Murray's child was better.
Or exciting. For all of us as sports fans, if his 5-year-old was starting to beat him at tennis, that's very exciting.
Would be brilliant.
What about your two?
We're pretty competitive. They always beat me at chess every single time, but it's not a bum wipe. I have to go in for a poo chat.
Oh, right,
they like
you have to converse
chat.
while you're there.
That's what they like.
That's to distract you from your strategy in the game.
Probably, yes.
Never let them beat. I always think if you never let them beat you till they actually beat you, it's worth so much more to them.
Well, and also the other thing is they have to learn how to lose gracefully.
Yes.
You sound very competitive.
Yes.
Let them win.
We are.
They do have to learn to lose gracefully, and they will tell you that I'm the worst loser there is. I still haven't learned that. So that's why it always gets so competitive.
Yeah. Ashley and Nick are with us now to discuss more of today's news stories. So let's get straight to the first one. Did you go to after-school clubs as a kid?
Yeah, I had loads of extracurricular activities.
So did I. My mum was always like, keep them busy, it'll keep them out of trouble. Well, it turns out it actually does work. After-school clubs are being used as part of a range of measures to help disadvantaged pupils achieve higher GCSE grades. I think it works.
Yeah, so this is saying that more than 50,000 white working-class children are set to finish secondary school without passing core subjects this year, and fewer than 20% of all white British teenagers from deprived homes will leave school with at least a grade 4 in both English and Maths GCSE. And so one secondary school, which is Catmose College in Rutland in the West Midlands, have brought in extracurricular activities such as yoga, Scottish dancing and Wild Animal Club. And the pupils are basically doing getting a 10th of a grade higher in each GCSE subject. So, and in addition to after-school clubs, they can come into school from 8 a.m. and stay until 5 p.m. free of charge. So for me, this is a no-brainer. Like, of course, all schools should have after-school clubs, because not only does it allow children to do extracurricular activities with friends, which is great for like their social skills, but also just to have a break from like the academic and homework that they'll then have to go and do at home. But also, when you think of a parent's working day, look, most parents have to work now. Most people do have to work set working hours, and school hours and work hours don't correlate. And obviously, we've seen so many youth clubs shut down around the country since 2010. So there aren't really many places for kids to go. So I think, you know, rather doing amazing extracurricular activities. I love Scottish country dancing. I think it's one of the funnest things. I did it at
Get
school.
the music now. I want to see it. I don't like Scottish. I don't like Scottish country. I had no idea. Now, for me, after-school clubs were called detention. That's what and writing I must not talk in class.
Can be equally as effective.
Yes, 25 times. But this is the key. Here we are. This is the age, 15, 16. I'll tell you why this is working.
Go on.
Because he's getting kids off social media. Yeah. It's showing something, and they're making them socialise, whether it is Scottish dancing, whether it is yoga, or, I mean, it rather depends on the wild animal. I mean, if it's a leopard, I think I'd be rather frightened about that.
There was a lovely picture of people with a snake around his neck.
That's pretty cool.
This morning.
But it's because you show involvement in the children. Yeah. The children aren't on their damn mobile phones the whole of the time. And it's what young people, what we all used to do.
I think what would be interesting to understand is how Catmose College have funded this, because that's the key thing. Because if the school has the funds to put this into place, maybe they go out to some of the business in the network, then you can take the children and give the children the opportunity to experience these things.
I think also sometimes the school is a safer place for some kids than it is at home.
I bet you were a swat, really, weren't you?
I was a bit of a swat.
Properly.
I was a swat.
No. I was in detention with you. Don't you worry about that.
I was a bit of a swat. I was, yes. But my mum did keep me busy.
But I did love a Gay Gordon's and a bit of reeling. Was never happier.
Did you?
Yeah. Epping Junior School, we had a country dancing society.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, we absolutely
did. Gay Gordon's, or my favourite, Strip the Willow.
Strip the Willow, lovely.
Love that one.
So my son's...
It's hadn't gone very brave,
I joined the Reeling Society at university, because it's a great way of meeting girls.
A lot of kids go reeling.
Yeah. That's what he actually... Yeah, it's a good point. That's what, but also they get discounts at all the parties because they set up all the Scottish dancing as well. They love it. Brilliant. Let's move on, Nick. This
Things you don't know.
Interesting story which which I think that you would have a take on because you've recently experienced what it's like to have a car stolen.
Yeah, I did. And I'm not alone. There's around 100 people in London lose their cars every single day. It's a multi-million-pound business. I have to say, in my instance, the Met were fantastic. They did all they possibly could, but my Jeep was never seen again. Let me tell you the story about Mia Forbes-Piri and Mark Simpson. Their car, rather nice looking, I think it was an Audi, that went from Brook Green in West London, very nice part of West London. They'd fitted what's called an AirTag, which are we saying? Yeah, OK, so the AirTag, you sort of hide it under the seat or... I mean, some people even weave it into the upholstery so that people don't know. Why are you doing that?
AirTags on your kids these days.
AirTags on your bags when you go on holiday. That means you can find it. And it worked. They found the car in a different part of London. They then phoned 999 and said whether they would like to investigate, and they say that, unfortunately, the police were not particularly keen to get involved. I say again, they were fantastic for me, so I'm very sorry it didn't work here. So they took the law into their hands. They went the 4-mile journey. They've obviously got the keys. They got back in, and they took it away. But this is a sage. Unfortunately, what happens?
It was a Jag, in fact, not an Audi.
I'm so sorry. It was a Jag. I misread that. I do apologise.
And that's the car there. That's them finding it on the street, I think.
And all the upholstery is ripped because they've gone through trying to find where you find the tag. And also, the cars have ghost systems now.
Yes.
Right.
So you do, and so they try and enable. So good news, they got the car back. Bad news, it was not vandalised. And news, maybe the police could have helped, but they were great.
Can I say this exact same thing happened to friends of mine who live in Clapham, and their car got stolen, and they had an AirTag in it, and they rang the police, and the police were like, well, if you know where it is, why don't you just go get it? And so they were not very helpful. And they were like, well, what if someone's waiting in there for us? And so they were, like, really scared, but they did go, and they did manage to retrieve the car.
I mean, we do have to give a warning, be very careful, because these people, if they're going to steal your car, they're not going to be the sort of types that necessarily would go Scottish dancing with.
No, well, it'd be a reel of difference.
Or there might be. Team Linda over here.
I think I'm led to believe that they steal the car, they try and find the AirTag, and then they park it down the road somewhere and leave it a few days, see if someone comes to get it.
And if not, it's on a transport
and then
possibly
it's
up to Europe, Africa, or
wherever,
wherever, Asia.
I think, I mean, you know, if you talk about, like, petty crime, you almost know now that if you get your bike stolen, you're not going to get it back. But no, I'm saying
I was going to say.
A car, I feel like if the police aren't helping you to get a car back, then what actually are they doing? But then I also do think it's worth, like, bearing in mind how much the police numbers and funding has been cut.
Well, I'm going to say something now.
Go on,
I
please
blame
do.
the car companies. Did you ask for keyless entry of your car?
No.
I didn't. And this is what makes it so easy for them.
Yeah.
Because they can actually tune... I won't give the method away because the police told me anyway. They find a way to tune in. Let's just leave that there. I'm quite happy. I was quite happy to turn a key. Yeah, and fewer cars were stolen. It's simple. I never asked for
I think one of the interesting things is when... our neighbours have a car and they put a steering lock on it.
Yes.
Really
Yeah,
old-fashioned, but
yeah.
because it
We have
slows
a
the thieves down, they have to remove it. Often it's the deterrent. It's the deterrent that you need.
I've got a Rottweiler sleeping in there. And he's starved. A starving Rottweiler, so all your luck.
I love it. OK, let's move on to the French. They are up in arms, apparently.
Ooh la la.
From Dordogne in the southwest to Normandy in the north, councils have introduced curfews to limit the hours when lawns can be mowed to keep the peace and quiet. Should we do this in the UK?
I mean, is this what the French were Big Brother, Grand Frère? Is this a Grand Frère state? Because, I mean, is lawn mowing that offensive?
Leaf blowing sometimes is, isn't it?
Leaf blowing can be more.
I love the
Chainsaws
smell. When you hear
are a pain.
someone mowing their lawn and you smell that fresh grass, unless you've got hay fever, that would be annoying.
That sounds
But
great.
it's such a great smell.
But a lawnmower never really struck me as being, as you say, particularly noisy and irritating.
I miss the old ones that you used to push. Did your
No,
dad have...
we weren't born around the Second World War. So that's the difference.
Well, that's the one my gardener's got. I just like to make it work harder. My gardeners.
What's outstanding about this is, so the councils have introduced curfews, but they're such bad times. So you're allowed to mow the lawn in weekdays between 8 a.m. and midday, so the time you're either getting the kids to school or getting yourself to work, between 2:40 p.m. and 7:30, again, by the time you get home, have dinner, get your kids to bed. Then on the weekend, on a Sunday, between 10 a.m. and midday. So again, if you've got kids, probably the time that they're going to swimming or doing any other activity.
Samedi, Saturday's missed out completely.
No, samedi.
No,
only Sundays and bank
It's also
holidays.
the lunch is kind of
sacrosanct.
yes,
It's all over lunch.
absolutely. It's
There's
like
no
no
mercy.
lunch.
So you can't do anything.
I grew up in the countryside, but so much in the countryside that there weren't any neighbours to complain. But in a city, especially London, if you complained, if you had curfews on sounds, like if you think every day we have like sirens, building works, road works, like you'd never get anything done. And I just think if it's in a public space, is it anyone's business?
Fines from €68 to 450 if it goes to court. Some guards have been threatened with fines up to €138. Our poll this morning, should we introduce set lawn mowing hours?
No.
Yes, 38%. No is 62%.
Well done.
Like,
Yes.
loud
The norms
music,
have it.
I get. Loud music, very antisocial. Lawnmowers,
No.
Seems a
kind
little
of white
excessive,
noise,
doesn't
isn't it?
Yeah,
a little
totally
bit.
lulls you to sleep.
Thank you both for
Thank
sticking
you.
around.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. And we'll see you in the morning.